betterment. There's always room to improve oneself. And so we believe that in as much as we see a number of men looking as though they are comfortable and happy and doing well, we believe that to a large extent, and this does not apply to everybody, of course, it's a false sense of security that we are witnessing, a false sense of satisfaction, a false sense of safety. You see, because we have come to a point where we are so obsessed with consumerism and materialism that once we have what we believe we need, what we believe we want, we figure, hey, that's it. I have arrived, or I'm close to arriving. And unfortunately, many of us do not even bother to ensure that our neighbor, our colleague, our countryman, our fellow man is also at that stage where he thinks that he has what he needs, because we are aware, those of us who study these things, that there are pockets of poverty, there are areas of need, there are many points of want that exist in our society. And for those of us, therefore, who think that we are comfortable, that we are okay, we need to be aware, we need to know, not only that there are men out there who are not as well off, as fortunate as we think we are, but we need to know who those men are. We need to be able to identify those men and find out to what extent we can assist. And I must admit, I'm not so sure what the actual action points are. How do we translate this desire to help and to change from rhetoric into action? How do we move from theory to reality? How do we actually, having identified these men, and I don't think that's too difficult to do, how do we actually get to concretizing and making tangible our assistance to them, to help to lift them, as it were? And as I said earlier, that is one of the major objectives of the Men's Council, to lift men from wherever they are to a higher point, a higher level, because there is always room for improvement, even amongst myself, for sure. I can tell you that. You know, I like to tell people, the more I know, the more I realize how little I know. The more I read and the more information I get, the more it becomes clear to me how very little I know, how much there is to know. And so no matter how much we help others, there's always room to do more. So when we look at the statistics with respect to our men, and I'm going to stop in a minute so that Brother Agard can intervene, we are not happy generally with what we see. Certainly from the point of education, and I believe I am qualified to speak, and I feel comfortable speaking about education at any point, in any forum, and not just speak glibly or emptily, and I'm creating a word there, but with stats and facts and figures and data grounded in evidence to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that our state of education in St. Kitts is far from where it ought to be, far from satisfactory. But when we look at other indices and other indicators and other yardsticks by which we measure success and progress in our society, socially, economically, emotionally, psychosocially, and of course spiritually, we have to come to the conclusion, I believe, if we do so objectively and dispassionately, that there is a lot to be improved. There is a lot to be worked on. That we need to move from the superficial, from the artificial, from the perfunctory, and get to the depth of these matters, so that when we speak about progress and growth and development, we are talking in real terms and not just spouting rhetoric about sustainability and about movement upward and so on. We have the facts to support our claim that we're moving upward and onward. But Agard, your turn.
Yeah, blessed greetings, Blake. As you know, everything went forward in full view of what Mr. Blake, well, see how you got me saying Mr. now.
Yeah, and Brother Blake.
Oh, okay. I don't really say the Mr. Blake thing, but I just say it for you. Right. Now, I'm all for the idea for improvement, but what we see happening, like for instance, we'll go straight to the heart of some issues. We have these social programs, for instance, that are being executed, and there's this one particular program that seek, in my opinion, to purchase the ambition of our young men. Because if you now, while some of these youngsters may do something with what money they're getting and what's not, the majority of them is basically doing nothing. And when you have that situation on hand where you're paying people to do nothing, then later on to ask them to do something for that same pay become a problem. So it's as if, well, there is no ambition left. So, because if you could just sit and do nothing and get paid, then, why do work for that? So there's some, and this is the thing, even if there's just 2 out of the 2,000, people could still call and say, well, some of them open car wash and some of them, but what about the 90% of them that is doing absolutely nothing? So, you have these social programs, and I would give a small analogy, like if you have a pipe in your house, is broken, water flowing out of it, you might put a little Band-Aid on it while you go to town and purchase the necessary pieces to fix it. And I see these social programs like that. It's like you put a Band-Aid, but for some reason you have not gone to purchase or to get the things in place so that you could move from it just being a social program to some sort of impactful development for growth in our community as far as the men are concerned. Now, once you weaken the men in any society, you basically weaken that whole nation, so to speak, because we hear a lot of things about women empowerment. And if you empower the women and don't empower the men, is it just assume that the men are empowered? Because if you go to most of these governmental departments and so on, they are predominantly run by women. I mean, and I think Blake have these statistics concerning the PS. You have like 27 of them, only three male, all female, and we could go down the road speaking about that and what's not. And it should not be a competition. But sometimes you have to ask, are some of these men in leadership trying to prove a point? Because what would that point be? Because the whole idea that you're empowering women, but you're not empowering men, or assuming that men are empowered, is clearly not true. So I just opened that area for a little discussion and just move it back to Blake.
Okay, thank you. We're going to open the lines, listening audience, sooner than later. But I wanted to support an argument, or one of the points of argument, so to speak, that Agard raised, that we like to use a minority percentage as evidence of general success. So he spoke, for example, of 2 persons or 2% of persons doing well, and we point to them and say, hey, look there, that means we're moving up. That's progress, that's development. We do it a lot in education too. We do it a lot in education. So if 500 students write exams and one person passes 10 with 10 grade 1s, we say, boy, I think this is doing great. Look there, we have a student who got 100% all A's. Conveniently and deliberately omitting the 490-something who did very badly. Not to talk about the 100 who passed none at all. And not to talk about the other 200 who were not even able to write any in the first place. But we harp on that one individual, or that 1% of the cohort, or 5%. Well, we are aware that sociologists argue that for anything to be significant, it must be at 5% or more for it to be statistically significant. But then that is just the theory of sociology. We argue that a majority is 51%, half of the 100. And we know that if we were to use that statistic as a yardstick by which to measure success, we have failed in a lot of areas, because we can't even approximate 51% in a lot of areas of involvement and investment and activity and so on. So Agard was right. We can't use 2% of the guys who open a business here and who started an entrepreneurial exercise there and say, see, the system is working. We can't do that. We have to look at the overall picture, ladies and gentlemen. All right. And when we do that, well, When we do that, we'll talk a little bit more about that after this commercial break.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
More than 42 million cars from 19 different car companies are being recalled for faulty airbag inflators. Repairs are fast, easy, and free. The problem isn't with the airbag, it's with the airbag inflator. Because the inflator can rupture, shooting shrapnel through the airbag, which can cause serious injury or even death. Don't risk it, fix it.
Please contact TDC Automotive Division to find out if your Toyota vehicle is affected by the Takata airbag recall. Visit or call us at 465-2511 in St. Kitts or 469-5430 in Nevis.
Too often, customers are counted but not valued, like mere numbers, statistics, transactions. But at Flow, we're rewriting the rules and prioritizing you, our valued customers, who have been with us through every milestone, every moment. That's why we're putting our money where your loyalty is. Flow customers claim your $600 gift card when you add internet to your current postpaid plan. Because loyalty isn't a one-way street. At Flow, loyalty flows both ways.
Supplegen is giving away 3 unforgettable shopping sprees valued at $1,200 each. Just shop and win. Spend $12 or more on Supplegen products at your favorite supermarket. Write your name and contact on the back of the bill and place them into the Supplegen entry form boxes. Enter as many times as you like. Promotion runs from April 1st to May 31st. Supplegen boosts you up.
Yes. Welcome back, brothers and sisters. So the Men's Council, for example, is concerned about the fact that for years now, and perhaps since the opening of the prison, Her Majesty's or His Majesty's prison, the vast majority of inmates have been men. What is that? Certainly that indicates something, a failure, a non-performance of some aspect of our being, of our social makeup. The fact that this has been like this for years, and we have not ever seen a dent, either in relative or absolute numbers, in terms of the quantity of men there, we are concerned about that. Has ever any entity, government or NGO or church or any other organization, ever sought to engage in a deliberate study as to why this is so and how to address it? We at the Men's Council, we are also concerned that men generally are living shorter lives than females. Of course, we know that this is not limited to St. Kitts, but in as much as we are concerned about what happens to our brothers and sisters elsewhere, we are more concerned about those here because this is our native land, the one we love the best. Men generally have a shorter lifespan, shorter longevity than that of females. Has any study been undertaken to determine why that is so and to address it? We are aware that men are far more culpable with respect to accidents here in St. Kitts, both in terms of, well, certainly in terms of being the culprits, being the culpable ones. Why is this so? When we have, if not the same number of females as drivers, maybe a larger number of females driving. I think St. Kitts has one of the largest number of female drivers per capita throughout the entire Caribbean and the world. I spent some time in Cuba, and I don't think 1% of females in Cuba are drivers. In St. Kitts, it certainly is, I believe they approximate minimum 50% of holders of driver's licenses in St. Kitts. But the vast majority of accidents, those responsible for causing them are men. Well, when it comes to motorcycle accidents, 100% I believe, or close to that, certainly are men. We find, for example, that men are least represented as members of volunteer organizations. Men are least represented as heads of family homes, and families. Men are less involved in the lives of their children, certainly at the educational level. And like I said, having spent all my life there, I can speak with authority in that, than women. There are fewer instances of men having legal custody of children, especially in unmarried contexts, than women. We see far fewer men involved in church and religious and perhaps spiritual activities than women. We see far more women involved as teachers and nurses, for example. At one point in St. Kitts, 100% of nurses were females. We now have 1 or 2 men getting involved. That is good. While I was in the teaching profession, there were 1 or 2 primary schools which had no males at all on their staff. No males. But at least 50% of the students were boys. I keep giving Almighty God thanks and praise that I attended the Bastia Boys' School, best primary school in the world, and I have been arguing that we need more single-sex schools for boys in the Federation. So the question is, are there stresses and stressors in society, in homes and workplaces that predispose to these realities? What are the factors that dictate that these situations be so? How do we deal with them? We're going to open the lines, Quint, as soon as you're ready, so that we can engage with the public at large, and we're hoping that a lot of men will call in and share with us. These are some of the concerns that the Men's Council have, some of the concerns that we have, and we would like to hear from the men as to what their suggestions are. And we not only want to hear from you now via this forum on Win FM, but we'd like to see you at the meeting next week to continue the discussion.
Yeah, the lines are presently open. From the moment you say we will open the lines are officially
Okay,
open.
good. So, brothers and sisters, the lines are open. Feel free to call us. I can't recall the numbers offhand. I believe one of them is...
Yeah, let me give the numbers. 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989 in the UK, 033-344-0065 in the US, 718-285-6984, and in Canada, 305-921-4619.
Okay, I guess you heard that, but just let me read the local numbers for clarity. 762-662 or 466, all ending with 0989.
Yeah.
466-662 or 762-0989. Call us and talk with us. So we are concerned, like I said,
Go back to
about these realities and how do we deal with them. Are there any outlets, for example? Are there any safe houses for men? Are there any agencies? Are there any entities? Are there any organizations that men can comfortably and confidentially go to get help and support, to get advice? These are questions we need to ask ourselves, and with a view to correcting them if they need such correction. Are there any church or workplace facilities and programs for men who might need particular interventions? Are there any government such programs in place? Do we have male guidance counselors in schools for the boys? Do we really expect boys with certain intimate, quote-unquote, issues to be comfortable speaking to female guidance counselors? Are there mentorship programs which are actually working and producing results? How do we measure the success of these mentorship platforms? Because we are just proceeding along glibly as though things are dandy and things are ideal and things are the way they ought to be. And when we hear from some of our leaders, they entrench this belief that things are great, things are good. But beneath the surface, like I said, when we delve beyond the cursory, when we go beyond the artificial and the superficial, we find that there is a lot of areas that beg for intervention, that beg for support. And we of the Men's Council, we are concerned about that. We are also fully aware, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, that we cannot do it by ourselves. Even if we recognize a particular need and we want to plug a gap, the reality is that it's more than likely we will not be able to do so ourselves, given our small numbers, given our small pot of resources and capabilities. But if we were to be able to tap into that which exists in society at large, the kind of capital that we have, financial, intellectual, academic, technical, emotional, spiritual, we will be able to offer assistance to those who need it. So, we look, for example, at the state of unemployment and underemployment in St. Kitts, and the unemployablement, in other words, those who are unemployable. Again, we find that it's largely men who are affected. When we look at health issues.
Before you're going to help, Blake,
yes.
let me go back a little bit to
sure.
the employer.
And we are still inviting you to call us, yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things when I spoke earlier about the purchasing of the ambition of the young men. That's one of the things that kind of jump out from the school, because you find that while the teachers seem to be predominantly female are not generally attracted to skill-based employment or profession. So they're like, you could say, the first line of model and motivators for the youths. So the idea now is that the children are basically told to become doctors and lawyers and so on, and not to become plumbers and farmers and these kind of skill-based that actually build our nation. So you find now we are now getting a lot of children coming out of school who are not necessarily seeking skills that build our nation, but are more on the academic venture, trying to see if they can compete into the world of doctors and lawyers and so on, and not so much who build our homes, who maintain our homes, and who provide service for a lot of things that we enjoy, the AC units and so on. So you find that if we are putting skill like at the bottom and putting these academic achievers at the top in terms of the type of profession that they are seeking for them to become desk clerks and stuff like that, then our young men are not attracted to some of those things, and therefore maybe it's easier for them to go plant some weed or something. I mean, and even just saying that is kind of strange, because you would hear our government officials say that, you know, we have taken $1.5 million worth of cannabis from some youngsters, but you just take $1.5 million out of society that could have purchased food, clothing, provide, different things to pay bills and so on. And you're not there's not compensation that could have purchased food, clothing, provide, different things to pay bills and so on. And you're not there's not compensation for the youth them. So you just in a kind of loop that is basically more destructive than empowering the young men.
Yeah, well, it's a simple procedure. Females cannot help but teach in a female-centered, girl-centric manner,
right?
Generally speaking. And we are subjecting boys over and over, again and again, to that type of approach, to that style of teaching. So that boys' learning styles, boys' learning needs are really not being addressed. Is it a surprise, therefore, that we're seeing rising levels of femininity and ladylike behavior among our boys?
That I'm glad to interject here, because man, this kills me every time. And society has got to wake up to this reality. We are feminizing our men.
Yeah, but that's what the school is made up of. Just women teachers, women head teachers. I mean, it's just almost, he has become like cultural and natural now.
Yeah.
Not long ago, I tried to organize a debate among high schoolers. The topic was the feminization of the teaching profession is responsible for male underachievement.
Yes.
Because, as I said earlier, when we had the experiences of some schools, primary schools, and primary schools, of course, are the foundational bases for growth and development. This is where...
We have a caller.
Sure. Let's take him or her.
Hello, caller. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. Quinty is me again. First of all, I would like to say, Clint. First of all, I would like to say.
And to the
that-
panelists.
Yeah, and to the panelists. But this one is for you, really. I've called the 66 number about 15 times, and it does get 3 rings, and it cut out. Sorry, I've called that is 7 something. The 7 something number. The 7 something number.
The
I've called it
762
about 15 times.
the 762 number?
Yes, I've called it 15 times, and it does get 3 rings, and it cut out. Yes. So I decided to try this 662 number, and every time I call, it is telling me the person I'm trying to reach is unavailable and that sort of stuff.
I get that
I've
too.
tried that 3 times on the 66 number. So you still have issues with those 2 numbers.
Okay, Greg, thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, but I thought we would have
Okay.
a comment to make
But
with
let
respect
me
to
tell
the
you,
discussion here.
Yeah, let me tell you a little something. I would like to say this, and as a Christian, I'm going to say this. The Bible put the onus on the teaching of the children, the disciplining of the children, on the man. Yes, mothers have a part to play, but the onus of it is on the man, because it is the man who God set up to be the leader of the family. And therefore, both mother and father are both parents, but especially the man. The Bible says you are to bring up your children in the fear and admonition and discipline of the Lord Jesus Christ. When you see, the need is more than having good fathers. The need is having godly Christian biblical fathers, because it is only those families God will bless to the uttermost. And in the end, society would also be blessed to the uttermost with Jesus Christ's blessings if we have godly Christian families. Not good families, but godly Christian families. So if society is to progress to its max, you need fathers taking the lead as godly Christian fathers, bringing up their children in the fear and admonition of the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, when I said that, a lot of people just say, especially men, oh, I just send my child church. I just send my child church. I just send my child Sunday school. No. You need to do more than that. You need to go with them and be with them. But not only that, you need to, even in the home, be teaching your children what the Bible says and be disciplining them up in the fear and admonition of Jesus Christ. And even when you go out with them on outings and that sort of stuff, you need to be teaching them what the Bible says about creation, about life, about all of life. And you discipline them when they ought to be disciplined according to the Bible, and you praise them and reward them when they ought to be praised and rewarded according to the Bible, all to the glory of Jesus Christ. This is what blesses families, and this is what blesses society. Until then, we will just be experiencing the judgment and wrath of Jesus Christ when we don't do things the Bible's way. And therefore, these and other factors are responsible for the decay and degeneration we see in society today. I mean, how could you explain otherwise? Women behaving vulgarly, dressing vulgarly, especially during carnival and so on, in entertainment and so on, both men and women, vulgarly, but especially your woman supposed to be more ashamed of it than even the men. But both of it supposed to be ashamed of such behavior. But when even your woman lose that shame, that shows your society is well on its way to degeneration. And all of these, I believe, evils and degeneration that we are experiencing is because fathers especially are not bringing up the children in the fear and admonition of Jesus Christ. They think just sending them to Sunday school is that much.
Greg, you can't keep going on.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are hoping that others are not having the same problem in terms of trying to call in on Win FM at this time.
Yeah.
But Greg might be onto something.
But before that, maybe we should say which number Greg used to get in.
He used the
Right, so say that to the public.
4660989 number and the 6620989 number seem to be the ones that are working. The 7620989 seems to be the one giving a bit of a problem.
That's been so for a while. But the question is there a direct causal relationship between females dominating the teaching profession and the fact that over the years, so many boys, so many males, so many men have ended up in problems with the law? There might very well be a direct causal relationship between the two. This is an area that I'm inviting young people to study for their dissertation, either the bachelor's, master's, or doctoral level, because we might very well find that there is, in fact, that intimate link between the fact that so much of our teaching profession is controlled by women, and yet we have so many males continually being involved in delinquent behavior.
Well, I would like to say something to that in the defense of the women. Not that I'm in any way agreeing with how it is, but I think that people generally feel safer to have their children be watched, schooled, however you may want to word it, by female. Yeah, nurture. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. Because we have had some issues historically where men have basically been doing some awful things to children.
Yes.
And people are not comfortable sometimes with men being around. So while I agree that the feminizing of the school system is definitely causing an issue, we beg that it be more balanced. One, it seems like men are not so much attracted to teaching. I guess maybe we have to find ways to make it more attractive for males. And two, we have to actually also make sure that these male we have to do some due diligence to make sure that at least people are comfortable with the men that are chosen to be in the school system.
I agree.
Well, it calls for a wholesome, mature, and sober approach to dealing with the matter. But what I'm saying is that over the years, this has been happening for years, from time immemorial, and we're just allowing it to continue as though it is inevitable, as though it is incorrigible, as though it is irreversible. And I am positing now, I am planting the proposition now, that it is not. That there can in fact be changes. We can in fact reverse this trend. We can in fact create a new environment, a new paradigm, one in which men are no longer not just the dominant factor in terms of all these negatives, but that the negative behaviors in themselves are reduced significantly. That is my position.
Yeah.
Because when we move on,
and that's a good position. Yeah.
When we move on to look at the statistics again, with respect to the educational status, those who complete education, those who complete the education cycle, those who complete the education cycle. When we look at those who start off, it's almost 50-50 in terms of male and female at primary school. But when we look at the exit point at fifth form, you would be surprised. This is not a discussion focused on education, so I haven't walked with those specific data. But you'll be surprised at the vast distinction now. Where it was 50-50 at the very beginning at kindergarten, at fifth form, 12 years later, it's a very stark difference in terms of the number of females who graduate versus males. And of course, it continues into higher education. The number of persons who pursue higher education, just look at the number of males attending CFBC versus females. Those who pursue and accept scholarships, look at the number of males with respect to females. It is far from the reflection, or it is far from adequately reflecting the percentage of males and females in the general population. In other words, we have a maybe 70-30, if not 80-20 proportion of females versus males accepting scholarships in higher education. In the general population, it might be 60-40 maximum, if at all, right? And of course, the latest census data would bear that out. So I am suggesting, and the Men's Council, I believe, would mount this particular platform, that some of the solutions would include a return to single-sex schools. I've been arguing for that since I was in the Ministry of Education for all those years, both at the junior and at the senior level. And it is not just because I myself am a product of a single-sex school under the leadership of the indomitable Joshua Obadiah Williams, all right? And those of us who passed through his hands, we are happy that we did. I don't think there's anyone who regrets, who can point to moments of regret that he passed through the capable, competent hands of Obadiah. And we believe there are other persons like him who exist even today, who can do just as well or a better job.
Let me, maybe you might not be able to go into this in detail right now, but I would propose that perhaps on another program, because I know you want this to be an ongoing venture.
Definitely.
That on another program, you tell us some of the pros and even the cons of having a single-sex.
I can come back tomorrow and do that if you wish. I can come back this afternoon.
It won't be tomorrow.
I'm always ready. I'm always ready for that. That's for sure.
Because one of the pros I know I can say straight off of my head is that you will be able to have, because you have the sexes in different environments, you'll be able to better school them along the lines of sexual education and male-female interaction without having them integrate and experimenting on each other within that environmental proximity.
I am currently completing, I've just completed writing a book on Joshua Obadiah Williams, a biography of the same Joshua Obadiah Williams, for whom the primary school in Molyneux is named. And one of the chapters in that book, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, deals with the merits of single-sex schools.
Yes.
All right? And so I'm encouraging you now to buy copies of the book when it is ready in a couple of weeks, maybe months. And you will learn a lot there as to some of the arguments pro single-sex schools.
Yes.
And I also, to be fair, to be intellectually honest, I've also mentioned one or two of the demerits that have been studied by experts in the relevant disciplines.
Yes.
But let me know when you're ready for me to have a discussion on that, Quinton. I'd be glad to come and share.
Well, what you will do is whenever I'm usually the host of Voices, unless it's on a Friday, so we can touch base with yourself and myself, and then we'll run that by Lorraine and set the times and so forth, and that will be an ongoing discussion. I feel honestly that as men, that we need to let our voices be heard, pushing the profound aspects of what men in a society should be doing to advance and enhance the betterment of humanity on a whole.
What we find is in kids, and this is what the Men's Council is concerned about, is that men simply seem to gather in groups at bar counters and at domino tables.
Yes, you're right.
In large numbers, very often in many places. We're not saying anything is wrong with that, but that should not be the identifying factor, the major characteristic of male behavior in the society. That is my view.
I want to light some fire on that, you know. I really want to light some fire on that. Number one, the domino table. Now, I normally make fun of the name domino and just consider it to be a dumb game. Yeah. I know is a game you could download on your phone and play with friends and so on and what's not. But
let me interject. You're going to make your point and then Blake, because we're going to be wrapping up.
Okay. Yeah, right. So, well, I shouldn't waste my time on that game story then.
Yeah, because we can leave that for another time.
Yeah,
and we can
but
go in detail.
Okay, so we have really been here trying out some topics, so to speak. So as time go along and we get back here, we'll, as you just was organizing with Blake, you know, for each area we could always come back to speak about education, speak about society, speak about skills, speak about different things and so on. And one of the things I would like to touch on when we were talking about feminizing the youths is that it's it's an issue that coming from all angles. Like for instance, recently we see the issue of not using plastic bags in the supermarkets, yet all the garbage bags are still plastic, and all this stuff are still packed in plastics, and so on and so on.
And so many containers for drinks.
Well, and that's what I'm going into, because
society.
according to the CDC, I mean anybody could Google that. It's showing you that when you have beverages in plastic containers, there's a mimic estrogen that is secreted into the beverage, and a lot of our youths, our youngsters, are consuming these beverages with that mimic estrogen, and therefore that would cause a definite issue with their hormones.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because I spoke about it, but when the people for the environment came and I remained silent because I didn't want a back and forth argument. But I believe that in our Caribbean society, we adopt things because we're trying to appease some foreign entity.
Right, you don't have to make sense. Let me just go with it.
Who pick up something and we adopt it and run with it and impose it on the society. I mean, imagine I go to Hartsford Value Mart and I can't get a bag because you ban this and then a bag is costing $3, one of these, and it has plastic compound in that new bag.
All the items you bought, well, maybe not all, but 99% of the items you bought are plasticized.
That's what I'm saying.
Are plastic.
I'm not fully opposing the ban on plastics, because that can actually create some
no,
job opportunities.
No, am I? But what we're saying, what I'm saying, yes, is that you specifically, and then you make it like it's the panacea of
the problem.
Yes.
Right. But because we're speaking about young men, I just decided to add in that alongside the feminizing of the education system, to show that even into the stuff we consume seem to cause some problems and have our youngsters a little bit off balance. And I think that the focus on health should have been the priority, instead of thinking about, the plastic. Like I say, it creates business opportunities for people to make bags and what's not.
Yes.
And so I'm not totally opposing it. I just think that the focus should have been directed more maybe to the health and the impact that plastics in various forms are affecting our
The question is whether the authorities are aware of that and whether they are concerned about that. But that's
so Blake, you'll be doing a wrap.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you very much, basically, for being a part of this discussion. We believe that, of course, you were listening, even if you didn't make any attempt to call, and we hope that you were not frustrated by trying to call in and couldn't get through. The Men's Council, like I said, is concerned about what is happening in the society, and we wish to be able to effect some change, even if it's minor, because we must start with one small step is all it takes to complete a journey of 1,000,000 miles. So we want to invite you to be a part of the next discussion. We're not sure when that will be, but whenever Win FM is ready to accommodate us again, we want to come back and share with you on a different topic. And we're looking forward to seeing some of you men. I want to encourage the women to invite their adult brothers, boyfriends, husbands, uncles, godfathers, all the men in their lives to consider being a part of the Men's Council, and they can start by turning up at our meeting next Wednesday at 5 o'clock at the Irishtown Primary School. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, and we look forward to continuing this rapport with you. Blessings.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Ready to save while you build? Now you can at Builders Paradise. Yes, shoppers, build up your Value Club points at Builders Paradise. That's right, Value Club members and shoppers, your favorite frequent buyer club is now available at the home of hardware and more. Whether you're laying tiles, painting walls, replacing doors, upgrading windows, or fixing up your home, every purchase at Builders Paradise now earns you Value Club points. Enjoy exclusive benefits like discounts on thousands of items, special savings for seniors, instant deals, quarterly rebates, plus an extra up to 2% off every quarter. Shop more, save more, and more only at Builders Paradise. Don't miss out. Start building your rewards today with Value Club at Builders Paradise, because every bolt, board, and brush brings you closer to bigger, better savings. Terms and conditions apply.
Running April 17 to April 30th.
Now, our Value Club Blue Tag specials. Chobani Greek yogurt at just $5.69. Essential Everyday Shredded and Chunk cheeses are just $7.99 each. Ore-Ida fries, just $22.99. Campbell soup, $9.49. Fiora bath tissue, $22.99. Palmolive dish detergent, $11.99. And now our very low weekly
Value deals! Hungry Jack pancake mix, $10.99. Langus juice cocktails, $11.99. Quaker instant oatmeal, $11.99. Old Orchard apple juice cocktails, $9.99. The Colgate toothpaste, $7.99. I will spring bar soap, $11.99. Shop smart, shop value mart. Tell them in Spanish.
sea listo y haga sus compras aquí en Value Mart.
And you're in tune to Win FM 98.9, downtown Boston, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. My apologies for the delay, but today has been a rather hectic day, and I've got some new individuals here in the studios, and they will be discussing a very, very urgent topic and issue today, and I'm going to pass it on to them and let them begin their discussion. So here we go. Good day, Mr. and Mrs. Madame, Monsieur.
Greetings, good day.
Yes. So I don't know who would want to start first. When you speak, project your voice, please, so that the audience can hear you clearly.
Hi, good morning to the Win FM listeners. It is not my first time at the studio of Win FM. I recall many moons ago, if you can say that, I was in the studio. Albeit we're here on a pertinent matter which is urgent to the listening public at large, because predominantly some 96% of us should have some sort of concern with the matters that we attempt to dispense this morning. So stay tuned, persons of the awake community. They are logged on, and we wish to invite others, and this would be the start, albeit throughout the course of the day. There is a planned rally at the circus, so as you do your chores in the town, you can pass by and be of camaraderie, show solidarity, because I just listened to a clip this morning where Martin Luther King was unalived by a planned plot to silence his voice and the movement that he attempted to stimulate consciousness into the people's mind, to say to them, but we are humans and we deserve our equal portions in this scheme of things. So, a brief summary of what we intend to do this morning.
Are you going to give the brief summary?
Well, the matter at hand is the 19th or 20th attempt on the life of Captain President Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso, a landlocked country growing up in the 70s. In the 70s, it was known as Upper Volta because it's just to the north of Ghana. But it was renamed by conscious-minded people, and the name of it is Burkina Faso, which means land of honest and upright people. So this is the crux of the matter, and we just want to sensitize the general public that if we do, like it was said in World War II, when the society of Germany, they was silent because it wasn't none of their business, because there wasn't of a certain ilk in society. But when it came to that particular ilk, there was no other voice to be sound, no other voice to say, come on, So if we don't raise our voice now, it might just be too late when it reach our doors, when there would be no other voice to assist and rescue us. So it would be best. We should learn from history's lessons that this is real, irrespective of your persuasion in life. You know, we are so segmented now that we're going to say the same thing. It is not my business. But when it comes to your door, it might just be too late. So that's just the crux of the matter.
So then it goes over to the lady.
Okay, greetings. Good morning, listeners. My name is Cora, Sister Cora, known as many names. Okay, my name is Cora, Sister Cora. I'm known as many names. I have many AKAs. One of them is More Love. However, today I'll present myself as Cora, Sister Cora. I was asked just Monday by Brother Africa if I would assist in delivering a program with him regarding Ibrahim Toure and what's taking place. For me personally, as a woman of African descent, though my blood is mixed, I see this as, if some would call it Armageddon. It's a revealing of truth. If we look at ourselves as, or if we look at the original people of the earth, the original people of the earth were of hue. They had a color to their skin. Called blacks, called Ethiops, called Ethiopians, lived on a landmass when the landmass was all together, called by many names, and one of them was Pangea. So there's no doubt that the original people of the earth would be considered as black. In fact, at one point, the landmass was called Ethiopia, and all black people were called such Ethiopia, meaning burnt faces by the Greeks who, so to speak, created the word. For me, and what little knowledge I have, if we look at where we are now as people of color, say black people, say African people of African descent, we've seen worldwide that we are being oppressed and not having our equal share of the pie, really and truly. Given that we were the first, Brother Africa could go into many religions, that because we were the first people on the planet, before there was history, there was black history. That is a saying, and it's true. And if we would just do our diligent work, we will see that is true. Personally, because of what we see happening here, this is a man, Ibrahim Toure. He's a man who has become a leader of a country that is on the African continent, who is doing the best for his people with the resources he has. Free education, free medical treatment, subsidized housing. I mean, what a leader. He's taking his role seriously as parenting the society or the citizens of the land, the nation which he, so to speak, rules over. If we look back at history, we would see that leaders from the African continent and elsewhere, once they start to raise their heads and say, well, no, we do not want what America wants for us. We do not want what Europe wants for us. We do not want what China wants for us. Then we become a problem. And so the history is they will give us a bad name, say we're dictators, and next thing you know, they will take us out of this fleshly life. And this is the situation that we've reached now over this young warrior who is doing his duty diligently. And for me, I'm glad to be alive at this present moment to see that where we are now, we as people of African descent, however it is you want to term yourself, as skin color, however it is you want to term yourself, but you know you have a hue to your skin, which links you to the original people. Regardless of anything, this would be the first time, apart from in my lifetime, probably apart from Marcus Garvey calling together African people nationally, this is the first time that we as a people are going to stand, of African descent, are going to stand in solidarity, stand up for our rights and say, well, hey, we got to stop this. This is a total injustice. For a brother to stand up as he is and say he's going to reclaim the sovereignty, the freedom of his people, that is, you know,
laudable.
Absolutely.
Let me, if I may, interject, because, yes, I concur. Abraham Traoré is an example that the Western world wants to eliminate, because he's the kind of example that others, the longer he succeeds and the more he achieves, will want to emulate.
Exactly.
And the Western world don't want to see this happening. And in particular, France, who was their original colonizer. So they're trying their best to do to him what they did to one of his predecessors.
Thomas Sankara.
Yes, who started out on virtually the same vein, and they eliminated him. Now, they are well aware that if they eliminate Abraham Traoré, it would set back everything almost to starting over again. And so that is why all these attempts. So my understanding, if I may seek clarity here, is that you're both here to try to enlighten people to, one, what Traoré has been doing, the examples that he's setting, the threats that are being imposed on him and on his life, and the potential that he has for advancement into a better future, not only for his people in Burkina Faso, but also for the wider Caribbean continent. Am I right?
That's correct, because if I can mention a few of his plan, program, and the rollout thereof. At this moment, Burkina Faso is self-sufficient in grain, that he is exporting it. We know Burkina Faso is a more like agrarian society in terms of the land. They are part of the Sahel regions, which the desert is encroaching, and they have programs where they are trying to put green wall, a green space, to really put a barrier to stop the encroachment of the desert. So they are more an agricultural-based economy, cotton, onions. Then he going into grain. If you see the amount of tractors that this man has invested in, probably in his first year, and it went on and on. Irrigation, water irrigation, the things that he's doing for better roads. I mean, Burkina Faso got their quote-unquote independent, and I just want to stand a little bit here to just show you the solidarity. I purchased a shirt so that a picture's worth 1,000 words, so.
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, go ahead.
So that he can start afresh. Burkina Faso got independent in 1960 or 1961. If you will analyze and say that, well, where is the progress of Burkina Faso in a comparative analysis to say, well, or the east coast of Africa, Kenya, or Tanzania, or other Western African countries, man, they're deep in a hole. So even those who have a heart, and the US and France, they have to be heartless to see that the deplorable condition of that country. But you see the Francs, 15 of those countries was under an agreement where probably 85% of their revenues goes towards the French account, the French bank, Federal Reserves. So it's only 15% is disbursed towards social programs and all of that. Come on. So it was like a continuation. You got independent, but still you're not independent because you're not the keepers of your own resources that will dispense to the ordinary folks. Abraham Traore went as far as to give his salary, at least most of it, to orphans, children who have to struggle without a father or a mother, and women who have to do that same struggle because what their husbands went on the front line and probably died, or what we call unalive. I prefer to say unalive because it's a word that we have adopted and continue to say in order that when we grace the presence of the studios and certain places, it is all accepted.
I've heard that. I'm going to let the lady continue, but let me interject here. I noticed that a lot of the younger people have been using that term unalive, and I understand, but I disagree. But then let's agree to disagree. I don't. Why can't we say to kill? I mean, are we so hamstrung? Are we so intimidated that we would prefer to kill? We read in the Bible about killing. So now it is forsaken to say on radio to kill? Come on. I disagree adamantly. I say use the original word. If a child or some younger person wants to use it, but we the grown-ups, we don't have to follow everything the younger ones do. If we are going to lead, then let's lead. Sometimes, yes, they can have wisdom and we might be pushed to follow, but we are the elders and we should lead. And I don't have a problem with saying to kill. They want to kill our prophets, our leaders. So, sister, you can interject again.
Okay.
Bring your voice up, please.
Right. For me, like I said, for me, I feel honored to be alive at this moment because I see it as, again, I repeat myself, people of color, black people standing in solidarity, worldwide. And if we look at the Caribbean, or what is called the Caribbean, we have something called CARICOM, as most would know, and people know more than me as I'm just returning home. I look forward to when CARICOM actually work as a representative in hand with the leaders of the African continent, with the
AU.
Yeah. Because we're in a situation now where there's world powers. We were once the first world power, people of color, and we've come now full cycle. They say the circle must not be broken. We've now come full cycle. Those at the bottom are rising to the top to take back our place, and not to say that we will rule in a slaughterous way to take life, because that's not our nature. That was how we were able to be colonized, because of our nature. Our nature is peace ordinarily. But if you want to come and kill my babies, I will take my child off my breast and I will murder. I will take life.
Yes.
Now,
defense, self-defense.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
And it's like our motto. What's our motto? Our motto for St. Kitts, Nevis.
Country above self.
Okay. That's the spirit of Ubuntu, which is there is no you without me, no me without you. And in that aspect that is within us rising, then our children, our offspring look totally different to us. Some of them, they could pass for European, Spanish, whatever. Well, Spanish is European. However, their root, and a lot of them are conscious of their African root. They're coming from the original people. And I did use the word African. Generally, I don't. I just say original people because I find it very, very insulting for people of color, black people, to be limited to one continent.
Yes.
Right. So because we are global, we are the first, and we was on the landmass before any
And
other being.
during the time when we were the dominant power, we disseminated knowledge to the rest of the world.
Exactly.
And the rest of the world, after we had disseminated that knowledge to them, turned around and look what they have done.
Yes.
And now, present day, they're spreading war and bloodshed and segregation and yeah.
So we the fighters will fight. We will fight. We will raise our voices on behalf of the voiceless. We will fight on behalf of those who cannot fight and are weak. But at the same time, we want to motivate, we want to encourage people to be strong because it's too much at stake. It was Dr. Ericana Chirambwari Kwao. She is a Zimbabwean. She married to a Ghanaian. She said, of all the exploit that the colonials have exploited the continent at the Berlin Conference in 1884, 1885, commissioned by Otto Bismarck of Germany. When all of those European guys was fighting for trinquets, and they decided, wow, why are we fighting like that when there's a whole continent to be carved up like a piece of cake, like a cake, and dispersed? Dr. Chirambwari, Ericana Chirambwari Kwao said, of all the exploit, they have only exploited us 15%. So here is 85% awaits us. 85% awaits the sons and the daughters and sons of Africa, we who are in the diaspora. Are you going to allow the colonizers who have already got 15% and flaunting with it, coming down here, could give us a $20, $30 tips for our services, and we feel like that's something when 85% awaits us? And you are going to stay there and allow all sorts of chicories to hold you back?
May I just come in here, please? You know, as you say, brother, it's we have to, as you say, brother, we have to really start to consider, well, how is this impacting on us? Because a lot of us will say, well, it now bother me, it now trouble me, it now affect me, nah. Well, really and truly, you know, this is a global thing. This is a rush for power now. So we have US, we have Europe, we have the Asian, China and the Asian. And
Dubai, the gold that they sell in Dubai. Continue.
And then if we add to that the next largest deposit of people of color that are in this battle, not so much struggle for power, but in order to have equal opportunities, is the Caribbean.
Yes.
Now, we are in the Caribbean, and we, the ordinary everyday folks here in Uwali and Laimiga, we need to understand that it's going to impact us. It's going to impact us now, presently, but it's all going to impact us in the future. So it's about being aware and doing what you need to do to protect your own little nest right now and the life and the livelihood of the next generations. I'd like to go on to Buckley's. Buckley's, as most would know now, we had a revolution here, 1935. And that actually, the revolution...
We have a caller. Hello, caller. Go ahead.
Good day to everybody.
Yes.
Yes. Well, first of all, Quint, I would like to start off again by saying we need to become a republic. We need to push for the move to become a republic, to truly claim some kind of semblance of true independence. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. Let's continue the move for becoming a republic. Secondly, concerning Burkina Faso leader Toure, concerning him, let me say this. I believe in his mind he have the best for his people. He want to achieve the best for his people. I would give him that. Also, I would say as well that the attempts that I've heard that has been made on his life, they are wrong. They should not attempt to kill him. Let him do his thing in his country. If anybody is to remove him, it should be his people.
Yeah.
Not America or Europe, including France or anybody else going there to overthrow him, to kill him, anything like that. So I would condemn those nations that are trying to do such to Mr. Toure, including Trump, if he is involved, and reports say he is involved.
Yeah.
And I believe he is involved. But saying those two things, get those two things out of the way. I, as usual, based upon the teachings of the Bible, disagree with how he is going about to achieve those things for his people. He's going about believing that the way to achieve these things for the people is for the government to do this and government to do that. In the end, no, it's going to fail because it is contrary to the Bible. You're going to leave your people in big national debt, which is disastrous to any nation. The way to go about it is the biblical way of free market capitalism with taxes, where biblically being 100% voluntary.
But
okay?
Greg, if I were to interject, he has refused IMF and World Bank monies. This leader is doing it off his own volition from his own resources.
Yes,
whereas
they have
in the past, the resources used to exit, go to Europe, prop up the stock markets, the London stock market, the NASDAQ, the Hong Kong, all the stock markets of the world is where our resources end up and prop them up while our people suffer. So he is using the resource. That is why General Michael Langley, who is the leader of AFRICOM, has given a report to Congress, the Senate rather, and this is what really created a serious stir when a person of pigmentation like you and I, Greg, and Sister Cora and Brother Quint, we have seen that playbook. You're writing notes, Sister Cora. We have seen that playbook before.
Yeah, well, let me interject here and refer to Sister Cora. The very same things that she outlined that were done to Africa was done to us here in the Caribbean. The very same thing. We may not have had the gold, but we had the sugar cane, we had the cotton, we had the indigo, we had the corn, we had the wheat, we had everything that Europe was feeding itself back during the time of colonialism came from here and went to them, and we were living in trash houses. So it's the same. It's the same thing that is happening over time in Africa. Greg, you were saying something.
Not only Africa, the same thing that happened to Hong Kong under the British rule.
Yes.
Singapore and those sort of stuff.
Yes, but Greg, I hear you. But you see, we have got to. That is why Malcolm X is one of my favorites, because he didn't sugarcoat anything. And as a youth, we were radical. We have mellowed out with age. But Malcolm X's philosophy has always been, we have got to stop thinking about everybody else and what they have done and start thinking about what we have to do. 100%. So whereas I hear you, Greg, I don't want you to just be using others as example. I want you to put emphasis on us using ourselves as examples of what we can do.
Yeah, but Malcolm X also said that we are to use the best from every system. capitalism, socialism. That's what Malcolm X said.
But
Malcolm X was not adverse to learning from others.
But you see, this is where I have a problem. People will take a 1% of a statement made by an individual and amplify it and run with it for their own agenda, as opposed to the another 99% of what was said. Malcolm X also said, by the Bible, by the bullet, by the ballot, or the gun. People hate to hear that. People cringe when they hear that. But we as a black people better wake up and understand that by the Bible, by the bullet, by the ballot, or by the gun, any which way, freedom must
but
come.
I sure don't cringe when I hear gun, because I always defend the rights to bear and carry arms.
Okay.
Really. So I, for one, ain't cringing at the word gun. And,
Okay.
and you heard me this morning praise Kamala for easing up and allowing people to own guns now.
Yes.
So I'm not one to cringe at that.
Okay.
But let me also say this. Yeah, Malcolm X said by any means necessary.
Yes.
But so let me say this, okay? Like I said, Abraham Toure, I believe he have the best in his heart for his people. I give him that. I believe, and yes, he refused the IMF and that sort of stuff, which our Caribbean leaders need to learn that as well.
Yes.
Sad to say they have not learned that lesson, but they need to learn it. That's good and Toure's part to refuse the IMF and that sort of stuff, which are killing us out down here. Okay? Yes. But what I am saying is that Toure philosophy of government doing this, government doing that, I'm sorry, it's not going to work out for the good for Burkina Faso. Open up the economy, let it, which is the Bible way to go, let it be a free market capitalist economy, which is the Bible way to go, and you would see nothing would empower black people like that, because black people thrive the most when they are the free and able to provide and independent of government. Look at, for example, the Wall Streets look at the Black Wall Streets that we had earlier in the 20th century.
Yes.
Oklahoma.
Black people. You feel black people. You give black people the opportunity to provide and freely and so for themselves. And trust me, that would outdo any other group of people.
Yeah. May I interject
But what
here?
is killing up black people is government intervention in the economy.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, but Toure is on the wrong path with that.
Okay. The lady wants to say. So, okay, Greg.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg. I was going to interject, but I've now been given the path clear. If we look at the if we look at the Caribbean and CARICOM, we know that quite recently we were basically given how can you say, an ultimatum.
Yes.
Okay. Now it was America or China. Well, what happened to Africa?
Yes.
Yeah. And so CARICOM now are also, our leaders from CARICOM are also going to be targets when they don't toe the rope.
Yes.
So we need to really be sensitizing ourselves to what is taking place.
Yes.
Because we here, as another majority black group here in the Caribbean, we're in a situation, our leaders are going to be targets. Because you want to go with America, they might kill you straight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You want to go with Europe, they don't kill you straight.
Yes.
You want to go with Asia, they might kill you softly because they were boxed with me head with one hand and a stroke with the other hand. Because it's just the way that they have played the game.
Yes,
and the
that's the way
game
they played
is to rob us of our resources, to keep us asleep. The Chinese call us the sleeping giants.
Yeah.
Now, because they know we are the first, and with melanin, how melanin operates with them, with us.
Sister, wait, I'm going to let you continue, but we have a caller. So, caller, you may interject.
Let me say this. We got it all wrong. We got this thing confused. This is not like regular yesterday, and a man get up and take over a country, and so they want to kill him. No. This is the real reset. This is revolution. Abraham Toure uses 4 words almost every time I hear him speak. Slave, fight, neocolonialism, and imperialism.
Yeah.
We use them words there, but we don't understand the meaning. What Abraham Toure is doing is literally changing the system of governance that all at the colonies, whether England, France, in 1958, after World War II, when they gathered and agreed on the term neocolonialism, people use it, but they don't know words got meaning. It meant something. It meant the new system of governance. That is really what it meant. It meant how we will continue to control, to rule, without showing we fierce.
Yes.
We put the right people in place. This is revolution. He is changing the whole world dynamics. He is not just putting tractor in Burkina Faso. He is making Burkina Faso a sovereign state, not no independence. This is not a fight for independence. It's not a fight for emancipation. This is the real African struggle for liberation.
So caller,
freedom.
So caller, having said that, and we agree, then are we surprised at the attempts being made on the brother?
No.
Okay.
Because the voices must be silenced.
Yes.
The masses must always be kept living under this illusion that we are free, that we use the term we country. We which country? We are people, actually, we are occupiers.
Yes.
When they took us from Africa and brought us all the way across here, walk us in tunnels to plantations, they lost us. You mean we can't run away? We cannot go back. We are here like landscapers and stuff, maintaining, and they give us the, what they call it, authority, so we ain't gonna support you no more. No, I set up all you one kind of thing. It's not real.
It is not real.
None of it is real. We do not have any real political power. The most our leaders do every time they go in the parliament is pass laws, restrict the rights of the people.
Yes.
That's what they do. That's why they're put there, to further enslave us. Have a good day.
Thanks for that interjection. And I'm glad for that interjection too, because that is one of the reasons why I always say to our Caribbean people within the Caribbean diaspora, that we as a people have got to be awakened to the fact that until Africa is respected, until Africa is at its pinnacle in power, in development, whether economically, socially, and otherwise, we as a black people anywhere around the world have no respect and will never be of any moment until. So when I hear our Caribbean people saying, I am a Kitishan, I ain't no African, yeah, I'm an Antiguan. Yeah, I understand what you're saying to some extent. You were born here, we were put here, we were born here, but it is not our roots. And the saying, a tree is only as strong as its roots, is of eminent importance.
Not only that, because the depths of the roots, we're not afraid of the wind. because the roots are so deep, the wind will blow, yes.
Yes.
I want to touch on something that Sister Covert brought up, the wider Caribbean and the threat that was posed. Well, what about on an individual scale basis where our government was confronted with whether to allow our health services to go into this report or to stand up and address the matter? Our present Prime Minister, as a graduate of the program in Cuba, he was on the front line to have gotten up and said something. And lo and behold, our their beloved Prime Minister was silent until I spoke. I spoke and I asked him to get up. After I laid my case, I heard from Premier Matt Brantley, and I heard from someone called me and told me the Prime Minister is on. So we are not simple voices around here.
No, not at all.
The record can attest to that. Our voices must be heard, and our voices are vibration. And when I speak, I don't take back my words because I regurgitate. I think before I speak. So we are not simple voices around here. When we ask our Prime Minister, like in that case, to say something to the nation, you're a sovereign nation, alleviate the fears of our people who would go to the hospital for treatment services. And he did got up and said. So we are here to echo our solidarity with what is going on, and be that as it may, you know, this is what we are here to do.
Yeah, sister, and remember to speak loudly.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
You have a lovely voice, so we'd love to hear it clearly.
Okay. I'd just like to share something that has helped to awaken me as a black woman born here, taken over to UK back in the 50s, bred in UK, returning home now. The year 2000, UK opened their theme opened the year, and don't forget it's a year of this and that, you know. They opened the theme Caribbean theme.
Yes.
Now, we really need to ask ourselves why, and do levels of research. Why would the UK, the belly of the beast, decide Caribbean is to be the theme to come into? Little research that I've done. They are in this region called the Caribbean. We have mummified bodies found in sarcophaguses that are older than what are in Kemet. The Smithsonian Institute in America holds certain artifacts that would show the original people of the planets. Now, in saying that, we here in the Caribbean, we really need to get a grip on who we are, what we are. Yes, our blood may be mixed of this, that, tara, and the other. However, the overriding root comes through, because the DNA, it's there. It can't be, denied. Now, we've reached a situation where some say it's Armageddon, Babylon, Yuchuangan, don't whatever it is you want to say. We've reached a point now where we here in the Caribbean really need to have our voice heard, and we need to recognize, for us, the ordinary, everyday people, how is this going to impact on us and our children's future? Because that is the crux. Because if we're talking about assisting the next generation as the spirit of Ubuntu, or in the essence of Ubuntu, because I know some people don't like to use the word spirit, but, in the essence of Ubuntu, which is there is no me without you, which is living our motto, then we really got to think about this. Because if we're going to go through anything, we know we're going to be lacking imports of certain things. However, sustenance and cover, we have all we need here for sustenance and cover.
Yes.
We've been gifted, to be or honored to be born on fertile lands. Limega, fertile lands.
Yeah.
We can grow anything, anytime. I was told one time, way back when I was first coming back to St. Kitts, so I was going to Africa more. I was told you can spit out a seed and it will grow in, and you come back and it's going to grow in the ground. And you know what? I say I have to try it because I like agriculture. I love agriculture.
Yeah.
In UK, I did a level of agriculture, and I saw it, and I feel what I feel from the magnetic earth that we have. This is our piece of the landmass. This is our rock. We need to, and I applaud the Prime Minister for looking at the way we can live sustainably. For many reasons, because that's the way we should be living in harmony with creation. But I think my point is I want our people here in Limega, in the Caribbean, to really get serious. What is the impact going to be on us right here, right now, and the future for our children? In Buckley's, if the people of Buckley's generation, if they didn't stand up, where would we now? Would I be here? No. And if we look our children in the eyes, look our babies in the eye, look a baby in your eye, and say, I'm not going to do nothing for your future. I give you life, that's the end of that.
Let me interject. I love the way you go from British to Caribbean vernacular.
Because I can. I'm bilingual. Because it's now recognized as a language.
But I had to interject because it's time for the news. Okay. And so we're going to have to bring it to an abrupt halt. But this is just the beginning of what we will be unfolding in the future, just like the talk before.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yes, so thanks, sister and Africa, and
you're welcome.
You're going to make this a part of your home. Win FM is going to be like your second home. Yeah. Okay? Do take care. Thanks for being in tune to Win FM 98.9. And we now take you to the Win FM Midday News.
Thank you for this.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by The Grange and Carib Brewery.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the